UFO truth shocks churches. Religious leaders warn of Bible changing UFO disclosure as secret government briefings spark alarm. A growing number of influential Christian pastors and religious leaders are claiming they have been privately warned to prepare believers for a coming wave of UFO disclosures that could dramatically challenge traditional interpretations of the Bible and humanity's understanding of creation itself. Now it's time to go in detail and uncover the full story in today's AI
Picture
podcast.
this. You're a high-profile Christian pastor, right? And you get this invitation.
Okay.
It's an invitation to a secluded Airbnb way up in the mountains of Tennessee for a confidential gathering.
Sounds very mysterious.
Right. I mean, you'd probably expect, I don't know, a church retreat or maybe some kind of theological debate. But when you walk through the door, you aren't greeted by theologians at all.
Who is it?
You are greeted by U.S. intelligence operatives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they want to sit down and talk to you about recovered spacecraft, non-human technology, and reptilian entities.
That is just, that's a massive pivot from a Sunday sermon.
It really is. So we've got a fascinating stack of material for you today. We're drawing really heavily from the text, the divine disclosure, faith in the UFO phenomenon. And, our mission for this deep dive is to explore this absolutely bizarre, unprecedented intersection that's unfolding right now.
Unprecedented is the right word for it, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we are looking at U.S. intelligence, impending government UFO disclosures, and, well, a looming, profound existential crisis for organized religion.
Which is something nobody really talks about when they talk about UFOs.
Oh, they don't.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this. What happens when the push for national security declassification collides directly with the biblical story of creation?
Well, it creates a collision that, honestly, most people are just entirely unprepared for.
Yeah.
Because whether someone is, sitting in a pew on Sunday morning or they're analyzing satellite data in a defense lab, the frameworks we use to understand our place in the universe, they're incredibly fragile.
Super fragile.
Right. And what our source text reveals is that the government might actually know just how fragile those frameworks are. And frankly, they're terrified of what happens when they break.
Which brings us back to that incredible visual, right? The secret mountain meeting.
The Airbnb, yeah.
Yes. And this isn't some hypothetical thought experiment either. According to the evangelist and Bible teacher Perry Stone, this confidential meeting actually already happened.
Wait, it already happened?
It already happened. The attendees included high-profile figures, people like Bishop Alan Didio of Revival Nation Church, and the podcaster and evangelist Tony Merkel.
Okay.
And the intelligence operatives, they specifically sought them out. Like their goal was to prep the, quote, body of Christ for this upcoming wave of classified information regarding extraterrestrials and advanced non-human technology.
Wow.
I know, it's like a crossover between a spy thriller and a Sunday school class.
It really does. But what's fascinating here is the psychology behind choosing that specific audience.
Right. Why pastors?
Exactly. Intelligence agencies are fundamentally, they're obsessed with societal stability. They study human behavior. They study panic, mass psychology.
Sure.
If you hold information that completely shatters the accepted reality of human origins, you can't just, upload a PDF to a government website and hope for the best.
Just a casual Friday news dump.
Right. Yeah. You have to anticipate the shockwave.
It's like trying to rewrite the entire operating system of human culture without, crashing the computer entirely.
That is a perfect way to put it. And to manage that upgrade, you go to the cultural programmers. Preparing spiritual leaders first is this classic, albeit very extreme, strategy for managing public panic.
Makes sense.
Because religion provides the foundational worldview for, billions of people. If that worldview is suddenly threatened by, incontrovertible evidence of non-human intelligence, you risk mass ontological shock.
Ontological shock. That's a big term.
Yeah. Think of ontological shock as basically the psychological equivalent of the ground just disappearing beneath your feet.
Oh, wow.
It's that profound disorientation that happens when your core understanding of reality is just proven completely false. The intelligence operatives are reportedly, deeply concerned about the sheer societal breakdown this could cause. They basically need the shepherds to be ready before the flock panics.
Right. And, according to Tony Merkel, who actually attended this meeting, individuals connected to intelligence had been communicating with him for over a year leading up to this.
Really? A whole year?
Yeah, a whole year. And he suggested that intelligence-connected Christians are like quietly gathering information behind the scenes to try and figure out the implications of all this.
So this wasn't just a sudden impulse.
No, not at all. But the urgency of this specific mountain gathering, it points to a ticking clock. I mean, they aren't just having theoretical chats over coffee. They are urgently warning pastors today. And the source material explains exactly why their hand is being forced right now.
Right, because the timeline is accelerating exponentially,
Yeah,
and that's due to pressure from the very top of the executive branch.
Yes.
The intelligence community, they aren't operating in a vacuum here. They are reacting to direct political mandates.
Exactly. President Donald Trump reportedly ordered the Pentagon, specifically Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, to release government-held information regarding extraterrestrial life and unexplained aerial phenomena.
And the timeline on that was pretty aggressive.
Super aggressive.
Yeah.
The directive was very clear, release it, quote, very, very soon, with promises of uncovering very interesting information.
Which creates just an intense bureaucratic friction.
Oh, I bet.
Because on one side, you have an executive order pushing for this rapid sweeping transparency, and on the other side, you have a deeply entrenched intelligence apparatus that has spent, decades keeping this secret?
Decades, yeah.
They know exactly how disruptive this information is, so they are basically scrambling to prepare the cultural groundwork before the dam bursts, and all this information just flows out unfiltered.
And the information they are trying to manage is honestly staggering. Like, the specific shared with these pastors, it goes way, way beyond those blurry videos of lights zipping around Navy jets.
Yeah, we're way past the Tic Tac videos now.
Right. The officials at this meeting allegedly discussed recovered materials of non-human origin, technology that was definitively not created on Earth, and this is the crazy part, incredibly, references to actual biological entities, specifically reptilian entities.
Reptilian?
Yeah. Perry Stone even went on record saying the details sounded, quote, like something out of a sci-fi movie.
I mean, moving from, we don't know what these atmospheric anomalies are to, we actually possess the craft, we know they're non-human, and we have physical descriptions of the entities, that is a profound escalation.
A huge leap.
It really crosses the line from just a defense curiosity into a massive biological and historical revelation.
It does. But, if you're listening to this and wondering how anyone could possibly trust a government that operates this way, you're asking the exact right question.
Absolutely.
Because Bishop Didio claimed that these officials discussed a coordinated, quote, propaganda plan leading up to the eventual public disclosure.
A propaganda plan. They actually use those words.
Yes. And they also discussed secret investigations into crimes that were committed to retrieve and reverse engineer this technology over the years. So, wait. If officials themselves are openly admitting to these pastors that there is a propaganda plan in place, how are believers, or honestly just the public at large, supposed to trust anything that is released?
It's a huge problem.
Like, is this actual disclosure we're looking at, or is this just, massive psychological conditioning?
Well, we have to look at the mechanics of how intelligence agencies handle compromised secrets, right? There's this tactic known in intelligence circles as a limited hangout.
A limited hangout.
Yeah, limited hangout. When a deep secret is about to be exposed anyway, the agency will voluntarily reveal a portion of the truth, and it's often a really sensational portion.
But like aliens.
Exactly, like aliens. They do this to satisfy public curiosity and distract from a much deeper, much more damaging truth. So the propaganda plan the bishop mentioned, it likely serves this exact function.
So wait. They admit to the aliens to hide something worse? I mean, what could possibly be worse than aliens?
The crimes committed to hide the aliens.
Oh.
Yeah. Think about it. If elements within the defense sector have operated without any oversight for decades, illegally retrieving and, reverse engineering non-human technology, that involves black budget funding that completely bypassed Congress.
Right. Billions of dollars just off the book.
Exactly. And it involves severe, potentially lethal suppression of witnesses over the years. Public disclosure isn't just a fun scientific revelation. It's a massive legal and constitutional liability.
That makes total sense.
So the propaganda plan might be heavily tailored to protect the intelligence agencies from the consequences of their own secrecy, basically framing themselves as the heroes managing a sudden crisis, rather than, the architects of a decades-long cover-up.
Man, that reframes the entire mountain meeting for me.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, because they aren't just worried about the church panicking. They are actively trying to recruit the church to help sell their specific sanitized version of the disclosure.
Precisely.
But Regardless of the government's actual motives here, the officials were explicitly warning about a very real psychological and spiritual fallout. And the warning they delivered to these pastors was dire.
It really was. The existential crisis they expect this to trigger, it cuts straight to the biblical creation story. I mean, the core fear is that the narrative of Genesis will be fundamentally threatened.
Right. Perry Stone warned that believers might conclude the Bible is incomplete, or maybe merely symbolic, if other intelligent civilizations are confirmed.
Yeah.
The fear is that people will look at the Genesis account and then look at a recovered non-human spacecraft on the news, and their faith will just simply shatter.
It's a very real concern for them.
And the intelligence officials warned pastors to expect this wild dual reaction. So on one hand, a profound spiritual crisis causing lifelong Christians to abandon their faith entirely. And on the other hand, juxtaposed with that, terrified non-believers suddenly flooding into churches looking for absolutely anything to anchor them to reality.
The sociological dynamics of that prediction are just fascinating.
Aren't they?
Because you have the lifelong faithful, right, the people who structured their entire lives around a very specific set of absolute answers, suddenly finding those answers insufficient.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, you have this secular population that never really cared about cosmic answers before, suddenly terrified by a vast populated universe, running to the nearest institution that offers any sense of safety and meaning.
It's totally upside down. But let me play devil's advocate here for a second, though.
Go for it.
So what does this all mean? Because hasn't religion survived major scientific paradigm shifts before?
Sure.
I mean, we had Galileo proving the Earth isn't the physical center of the universe. We had Darwin introducing the theory of evolution. And the church adapted to both of those.
They did, yeah.
So why would discovering non-human intelligence break the faith completely rather than just expanding their definition of God's creation? Like, why can't a believer just say, wow, God's universe is way bigger than we thought?
And to be fair, some certainly will say exactly that, but you are touching on the difference here between a mechanical shift and a theological one.
Okay, how so?
Well, Galileo and Darwin, they changed our understanding of celestial mechanics and biology, right?
Right.
But the disclosure of advanced non-human intelligence, especially if the government admits that these entities have actually been interacting with humanity for millennia, that presents a direct challenge to the anthropocentric core of the Abrahamic faiths.
Meaning this deeply held idea that humanity is the absolute center of the universe and the sole focus of God's attention.
Correct. The narrative accompanying this disclosure, it might not be a simple, hey, look, we found some microbes on Mars.
Right.
According to the pastor's warnings, the government narrative might imply that human religion was, well, close, but ultimately wrong. That our sacred texts were just primitive misinterpretations of advanced extraterrestrial contact.
Oh, wow. That's heavy.
It threatens the whole idea of human exclusivity. If these beings are millions of years more advanced, do they have their own religions? Did God create them in his image, too? It essentially reduces the divine mystery to just technological superiority.
So is the difference between, like, discovering a new planet and discovering that the angels in your holy book were actually just scientists from another star system running a massive experiment on us?
Yes. And that exact realization is what leads to the concept that the pastors are calling the Great Deception.
Right. The Great Deception. The source material places huge emphasis on this.
It's central to their strategy.
The pastors are out there warning their congregations that this upcoming disclosure could actually be an end times prophecy event. They argue that these disclosures are designed to deliberately weaken Christianity and reshape humanity's spiritual worldview.
Which is a bold claim.
Very bold. The fear is that the government will paint Christians as obstacles to progress, who are just holding humanity back by clinging to primitive, mistaken ideas about our origins.
If we examine the mechanics of that argument, framing this disclosure as the biblical Great Deception acts as just a brilliant theological defense mechanism.
Wait, a defense mechanism? Are you saying that by calling this a great deception, before it even happens, they are basically like vaccinating their congregations?
That is exactly what they're doing.
So when the government finally says, here are the aliens, the church can just point at them and say, see? The Bible warned us about this trick.
You've hit the nail on the head. Apocalyptic theology thrives on the idea of a coming deception orchestrated by dark forces.
Right, yeah.
So if a pastor tells their congregation, hey, the government is going to show you incredible things, aliens and advanced technology, but you must remember it is a demonic trick to test your faith, They have essentially inoculated their followers against that ontological shock we discussed earlier.
Wow.
They take an external, potentially faith-destroying event, and they weave it directly into their existing belief system. By predicting the disclosure and labeling it a deception, the very event that was supposed to destroy their faith instead becomes like the ultimate confirmation that their end times prophecy is actually real.
So instead of the UFO breaking the Bible is actively used to explain the UFO.
Exactly.
That is a fascinating way to process trauma. But, the government's fear of a religious panic isn't just some hypothetical scenario they're discussing in Tennessee cabins.
No, it's not.
That same theological panic is actively shaping how lawmakers in Washington are currently interpreting classified briefings.
Mm-hmm.
And this brings us to the Capitol Hill crossover.
Because the lines between theology and national security are blurring at the very highest levels of the American government right now.
It's wild. Mainstream American politicians are adopting these exact same supernatural interpretations for classified intelligence.
Right.
For instance, Vice President J.D. Vance reportedly stated in March that he does not believe UFO entities are aliens at all. He believes they are, quote, demons.
Demons.
Yeah. He has described himself as deeply interested in UFO mysteries, but his framework is entirely supernatural. He isn't talking about intergalactic travelers. He's talking about literal spiritual warfare.
And when you have the Vice President of the United States applying a theological framework to unexplained aerospace phenomena, you have moved completely beyond the realm of traditional defense analysis.
Oh, absolutely. And he is far from the only one doing this.
Okay.
Enter Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna.
Okay, yeah.
She actually chairs a House Oversight Task Force that is explicitly focused on declassifying government secrets regarding these phenomena. So she is right in the thick of the intelligence and national security apparatus. She's viewing the classified data.
She sees what the intel agencies see.
Exactly. And what is her advice to the American public?
Mm-hmm.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
She encourages people to study the ancient religious text known as the Book of Enoch.
This raises an important question because for a House Oversight Chair to direct the public toward an ancient apocryphal text, this is a book excluded from the standard biblical canon, but it's deeply influential in early Jewish and Christian mysticism.
Right.
To use that to explain classified Pentagon intelligence is a monumental shift in rhetoric. We really have to look at the mechanics of why she is pointing to that specific text.
Let's dive into that, definitely.
Yeah.
Because Luna has suggested that the classified reports involving unexplained beings bear striking similarities to stories found in these ancient writings.
Yeah.
She doesn't call them extraterrestrials. She refers to them as interdimensional beings. And she explicitly points to passages in the Book of Enoch describing the Watchers.
Okay, so the Book of Enoch, it provides this highly detailed account of the Watchers. They are described as a specific class of angels who are dispatched to Earth to basically observe humanity.
Just to watch, hence the name.
Exactly. But according to the text, they deviated from their mission. They descended, they interacted directly with humans, and crucially, they imparted forbidden knowledge.
Oh.
They taught humanity advanced concepts like metallurgy, weaponry, meteorology, and even cosmetics.
They gave humanity advanced technology that we weren't supposed to have yet.
Yes. And the parallels to modern UFO lore are just impossible to ignore. In modern intelligence circles, we talk about non-human entities crashing craft, which results in the government secretly reverse engineering advanced technology.
Yeah, that's the whole modern narrative.
Right. And in the ancient text, you have non-human entities descending from the sky and deliberately handing advanced technology to humanity. Congresswoman Luna is looking at classified defense reports and seeing the exact same narrative playing out, just separated by thousands of years.
And she seems utterly convinced of this connection. During a 2025 interview with Joe Rogan, Congresswoman Luna claimed she had personally seen evidence and photographic documentation of aircraft she believes were definitively not created by humans.
The human mind is an incredible pattern recognition machine.
It really is.
When faced with incomprehensible technology, I'm talking about craft that defy our known laws of physics, moving without visible propulsion or thermal signatures, human beings instinctively reach for the vocabularies they already possess to try and make sense of it.
Right, you use what you know.
Yeah. For a quantum physicist, the framework might involve string theory or, I don't know, multidimensional geometry. But for a vast portion of humanity, including our elected leaders, the most robust historical framework for interacting with a non-human superior intelligence is the framework of religion.
It's like we've hit the absolute limits of our scientific vocabulary. Our physics textbooks can't explain what these Navy pilots and radar operators are seeing, so lawmakers are literally dusting off ancient religious dictionaries to find the right words.
That's a great way to look at it.
And whether you label them extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, or demons from the Book of Enoch, the implications of this impending disclosure are staggering. And, if you are listening to this right now, trying to figure out how this applies to your life, you really have to look at the ripple effects.
Because the implications extend far, far beyond just abstract philosophy. They touch on policy, law, and our basic societal structure.
Exactly. Regardless of your personal religious beliefs or your scientific skepticism, if this disclosure happens, if the administration actually releases these files very, very soon, as promised, the impact is going to reshape society.
Without a doubt.
It's going to change how our neighbors, our political leaders, and our institutions view reality. I mean, if people in positions of immense power view these entities as literal demons, well, that dictates national defense policy.
Yes, it does.
If intelligence agencies are running propaganda plans to manage religious panic and hide illegal slush funds, that dictates what version of the truth you are actually allowed to see. We are not just debating ancient history here. We are watching the real-time collision of ancient theology and modern state secrets.
And as we navigate that collision, there is a final thought I want to leave you with, one that draws directly from Congresswoman Luna's timeline.
Okay, what is it?
She suggested that historical records of these phenomena, these interdimensional beings, may date back centuries, potentially even before the time of Christ.
Connecting modern radar data all the way back to the Watchers in ancient antiquity.
Precisely. So, if these phenomena have truly been recorded for millennia, we have to ask ourselves a fundamental question about what disclosure actually means.
Okay.
Are we really bracing for a brand new discovery of aliens arriving from another star system? Or are we simply about to get modern bureaucratic government confirmation of something humanity has been living alongside and desperately trying to document in our holy texts since the very dawn of our existence?
Man, that fundamentally changes the narrative. We started today talking about opening a sealed government vault, expecting to find the clean, precise secrets of national security, right? Like schematics, budgets, the usual clinical files.
Yeah.
But what we're finding instead is a mirror. And it's not reflecting a new world out there in the stars. It might just be reflecting our own history, showing us that the murky, terrifying waters we are navigating today are the exact same waters our ancestors were trying to understand thousands of years ago. We just traded the Book of Enoch for a Pentagon briefing.
And the mystery remains just as perfect.
Okay, one question for you. If the government officially confirms the existence of extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings, do you believe it could strengthen religious faith by expanding our understanding of creation, or would create confusion and fear among believers worldwide? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.